All right, so in these videos, I'm just going to quickly run through and using the computer analysis, each of the games played, the longer games played from the Aiming for 2000 series. That's partly because it's just for those who haven't got like 45 minutes or so to watch each of the videos as I'm playing them on an ongoing basis. They can just watch them here and it might be 10, 15 minutes tops. And partly because I just think it would be convenient to have a record of the games individually, so you haven't got to keep looking them all up. And also then it suddenly occurred to me that although chess.com, all of the games are actually searchable anyway. If you have an account, you can just look someone up and look through all their games. But then it occurred to me that maybe one of my opponents might one day, I don't know, not want it to be on here. Maybe they'll stumble across a video somehow. Seems unlikely. And so, I didn't want to be blah, blah, blah. So if that's the case, then I figured I could do it on here without showing names, which is kind of cool. So lots of good reasons for doing this. Obviously, the first few games in the series, my grade was quite low at the time because it was a brand new account. So I'd started at 800. And this was the very first game completed. So I was playing white. It'll always be me at the bottom of the board, sometimes white, sometimes black. And I started, which I never really do, but it was just the first game of the series, so why not? I started with E4, and the opponent went for the center counter, the Scandinavian, which I didn't want to get involved in, so I played D4, which turns it into something called the Blackmar Diemer gambit. And you basically just give away a pawn in return for usually that one as well. So you give away a pawn in return for really quick development. You can get your bishops out quickly, get your knights out. You might castle queenside sometimes, and you sacrifice a pawn for really quick development. So let's see how it worked. Perfectly normal. Knight to C3, develop a pawn, a piece, and attack that pawn. Black, an interesting way of defending it, but as you can tell from the analysis bar, possibly not the actual best one. Knight F6 gets a slightly better score. Bishop C4 from me. The computer prefers bishop to G5, but bishop C4 is okay. We won't always get this, by the way. As I'm on a free account, sometimes we'll have to just look at this bit and do it ourselves. But this one, I get a limited number of games that the computer will analyze for me. So A6 has handed the slightest of advantages back to white, even though a pawn down. And A4 is perfectly okay. It stops this move being played because I quite like the bishop being there. Computer wanted to play knight H3, but that's okay. E6, just a developing move, fine. F3 is the best move, so that's the, there we go, pawn takes F3, but the computer says that black should leave that alone and just develop pieces. And now you can see now the whole point of the gambit is what's black actually developed, not a thing. The entire back line is still there, whereas I've got 1, 2, 3 pieces out. This bishop's ready to come out and actually probably even further, probably come to G5. We can castle and that will get the rook into the game. So you can see the whole idea of the Blackmar Diemer. And knight C6 now is given as a mistake. And unfortunately, I didn't punish it in the right way. D5 is given as the best move. Attacking the knight. But bishop E3, okay, well, it's been played now. Knight to F6, castles is correct. Knight E4 is just given as now an outright blunder. Looking at the analysis, it now says I'm just 6 points ahead. Let's see if I punished it in the right way. Well, knight takes knight is correct. Pawn takes is obviously correct. Knight to G5 is correct because now we're threatening here. We've possibly got the idea of the queen coming up and this rook is heading up towards the enemy position. So the knight could go there, which forks the queen, which forks the rook. Yikes, lots going on. And black's still only got one piece developed. G6 is playable, but at this point the game is almost over already. Knight to F7 with the fork on the queen and the rook. Black not unreasonably saves the queen. Instead of taking the rook straight away, we bring the bishop into the attack. So attacking the queen, but also now pointing towards the enemy king. So the king is getting more than a bit drafty. White not unreasonably saves the queen. Takes is best. Takes is obviously best. Now we take the rook, and you can see the material white is just a straight rook up. Everything else pairs off nicely, but white's a straight rook up. Knight to d4. Rook to d1, setting a bit of a trap. Because this bishop's pointing at d8 and so is the rook, and the knight covers that square. Does black make that mistake? Does he fall for the trick? Well, not initially. Quite a good move, putting the bishop onto the same diagonal as my king. So we get the king out the way. Perfectly good move, nothing really to choose between those two. And now, oops. Unfortunately, my opponent in this game just misses that the rook to d8 is a checkmate. And there we go. So that was the first game in the series. And yeah, I'm just going to do this for each of the games as I finish them. So anyone that can't have the time or doesn't have the time to watch the, it's not a live stream, but as live videos when I'm playing these moves, because it's 7 days per move per game, can just have a quick look at the recap here. So, okay, that was the first game done. Hope that was quite enjoyable. Nice, easy start.